Welcome back. The rise in kidnappings in South Africa is worrying. In a recent incident in Springs, east of Johannesburg, police set up a ransom exchange. However, the money wasn't paid and the victim was then shot and injured in the process. Let's speak now to anti-crime activist Yusuf Abramjee, who is also our resident crime analyst here at eNCA. Yusuf, so before we talk about the difference between kidnapping and the other crime where you are basically held for a brief period of time while your bank accounts are emptied, etc., etc. I'd like you to take us to this particular incident that we are talking about. Of what nature was it, and how significant is it in that there wasn't a ransom that was paid, but the criminals, it would appear, carried out the threat of harming the victim. But as I understand, the victim did not die in the process.
Yes, Thulasizwe, this incident took place on the east end of Gauteng in the Springs area. The victim, a 41-year-old businessman who owns a liquor store, was taken at gunpoint on Wednesday. There was a shootout and he was injured when he was kidnapped. Apparently, we are told one of the suspects was also injured and accidentally shot. There was then a demand for ransom running into millions of rands. The family negotiated with the experts from the South African Police Service. The kidnapping task team was brought along, and there was arrangements made for a ransom exchange. That is the spot where the money then gets exchanged. There was no money paid, and within a short while, the victim was then released, and he was found at a hospital in Springs. Obviously, he was injured because of the earlier shootout. But he seems to be, he's recovered. No arrests have been made, but we are told from our sources within the police that at least 3 or 4 suspects have been identified. So we're expecting arrest over the next few hours. And I must say, the kidnapping task team, Thulasizwe, has made some good progress over the past few months. Just 2 weeks ago, a 3-year-old girl was kidnapped also in Bakerton in the Springs area. She was held captive for a few days. There was also a negotiation with the kidnappers. Police also set up a drop for the ransom. And when the money was dropped off and before the money was paid, 3 or 4 suspects were arrested. There was a shootout. The girl was rescued and she's safe. Let's also not forget, as we speak, Thulasizwe, there's a number of active kidnapping cases in South Africa. An Indian national was kidnapped about 4 weeks ago on the West Rand. He's still missing. A well-known Cape Town businessman, a construction company founder, Ismail Raja. He was kidnapped in early March. He's still missing many weeks later. And as much as some progress has been made, these gangs are still very active.
Yeah. So back to that distinction then, Yusuf. We are talking about kidnappings being on the rise. The ISS, in their reading of the statistics, says that increase is about 113% in the last decade. So from 2010 to 2020, 113% increase. But the latest crime statistics showing it in decline at about 9%. Just talk to me about the trends of kidnappings versus abductions, which are not necessarily the same thing as kidnappings.
Indeed, let's classify. The Institute is right. We've seen a significant increase in kidnappings. Even in the last quarter, when the figures were released, we saw a very slight decline. But the number of kidnapping cases where people are taken for ransom most certainly have an increase. The trend there is business people, especially of Indian origin, Pakistani origin, Somalis, Bangladeshis, Pakistanis have been kidnapped in the Eastern Cape. We've had a series in fact, about 15 kidnappings of shopkeepers over the past 2 or 3 months. That has seen a dramatic increase. In the Cape Town area, there's been
my apologies, Yusuf. I've got a pressing interview that needs to happen very quickly. My sincere apologies. May I ask you to stand by? I'll come back to you so that you complete the point you are making. It is an important conversation, but we do need to take